I called 911 to order a pizza. But it wasn't because I was hungry. It was because I was trapped inside my own home, by the son I once trusted most. He took my phone, controlled my medication, locked the doors, and wrote fake reports about my health like I was some confused patient. On Christmas Eve, I had one chance, and I bet everything on a disguised call. The dispatcher was silent for a few seconds, then asked, "Ma'am, is someone threatening you?" And maybe, somewhere in her silent cry for help, you'll recognize a moment from your own life, when you felt trapped, unheard, or underestimated by the very people who should have protected you. Before we continue, I'd love to know, have you ever had to find strength in a place where you felt powerless? If stories about resilience, breaking free from toxic control, and finding your voice against all odds speak to you, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. There's more truth and hope waiting just ahead. The phone felt cold in her hand. Evelyn Carter's fingers trembled as she dialed the numbers she had memorized long ago, numbers meant for emergencies. And this, she told herself, counted. The first ring made her flinch. By the second, she pressed the receiver tighter to her ear, stealing a glance toward the closed door across the kitchen. He was still upstairs, or at least, she hoped he was. A click, then a calm voice. 911. What's your emergency? Evelyn hesitated. Her voice came out softer than she expected. Almost unsure. Hi, I'd like to order a pizza. Large, extra pepperoni. There was a pause. She could hear the dispatcher shifting on the other end of the line. In her mind, Evelyn pictured a young woman in a warm call center, sipping coffee under fluorescent lights, already assuming this was another prank call. Some lonely woman trying to be clever on Christmas Eve. "Ma'am, you've reached emergency services." "I know," Evelyn replied quickly, the words sharper than she intended. She caught herself, softened her tone. "Please, I want it delivered fast. 2417 Oak Ridge Drive. Side doors unlocked. Don't knock." Another pause. Then, the dispatcher's voice dropped lower, more serious. "Ma'am, is someone threatening you?" Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She looked up at the ticking clock above the sink. 6:43 p.m. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the cracked open oven. The only source of heat she had left. She hadn't felt her toes in hours. "I'm fine," she lied, her voice level, just very hungry and alone. There was a shift in the dispatcher's tone. Something had clicked. "Okay, Evelyn, help is on the way. Please stay on the line with me." Evelyn stiffened. She hadn't said her name. Not out loud. Maybe it was in the system. Or maybe she'd whispered it without realizing. It didn't matter. Upstairs, footsteps creaked across the floorboards. She froze. The phone slipped into her lap, and she quickly pulled the edge of her sweater over it, masking the glow of the screen. "Just the pizza," she murmured softly. "Don't forget the pepperoni." The dispatcher didn't respond, but Evelyn knew she was still there, listening. The footsteps paused above her, then shifted away, back toward the guest room. Evelyn exhaled slowly, trying not to let the tears that had been threatening fall just yet. Behind her, the old pizza flyer still clung to the fridge with a heart-shaped magnet. She hadn't used it in years. The number circled in red had once been for fun Friday nights with her son. Now it was a symbol of survival. She waited a few minutes before gently ending the call. The house fell back into silence, blanketed in a kind of stillness she had grown too familiar with. Upstairs, the door closed again. The memory of how she'd ended up here came rushing back. Her son, Ryan, had returned 2 months ago, unexpected, uninvited, but welcomed all the same. He had stood on her porch, 2 duffel bags at his feet, eyes bloodshot, voice almost childlike. "Hey, Mom," he'd said, "didn't think I'd end up back here. But life's been rough lately." She hadn't questioned it. That's what mothers do, she told herself. When your grown child comes home looking broken, you don't ask why, you make tea. At first, Ryan had been kind. He brought in firewood, took out the trash, fixed the faucet she'd been ignoring. He joked over dinner, made her coffee in the mornings, even asked about the garden she'd long stopped tending. For a while, Evelyn allowed herself to believe they were finding their rhythm again, that maybe this was a second chance. But the warmth faded, slowly. Subtly. Her medications were suddenly organized for her in a tray she didn't remember buying. He started intercepting her mail. Her cell phone malfunctioned and disappeared. And when she asked, Ryan said he'd taken it in for repairs. She was left with only the landline. And even that barely rang. He started locking the doors from the inside, moving her boots and winter coat to the attic, making up excuses about icy sidewalks and porch pirates. And when she tried to push back, he smiled, not kindly, but like someone who knew he was winning. She wasn't a prisoner in the traditional sense. But every day, more of her freedom vanished. Her voice, her autonomy, her very sense of self, all chipped away under the guise of care. Then came the night when she overheard him on the phone. His voice carried through the floorboards. Calm, confident. No, she's compliant. Symptoms are progressing. I've got the records. Should qualify soon. That was the moment Evelyn understood. Ryan wasn't just controlling her. He was documenting her decline. Possibly falsifying symptoms to apply for in-home care stipends. Maybe even long-term disability reimbursements. Her son had turned her into a case file. And now, on Christmas Eve, he handed her back her old flip phone. A strange gesture, cloaked in false kindness. You want something different? He asked lightly. Go ahead, make a call, pick somewhere cheap. He thought she had no options left. That she'd given up. But Evelyn hadn't forgotten everything. With a shaky hand, she dialed the only number that still mattered. Not a restaurant, not a friend, but 911. And when they asked what she needed, she didn't say help. She said, pizza. Because that was the only way she could ask for rescue, without alerting the man who once called her Mom. Evelyn Carter would never forget that Thursday afternoon. Rain had started to fall lightly, speckling the porch with wet spots. And she was making potato soup when the doorbell rang. When she opened the door, the man standing there made her heart stutter. Ryan. 2 heavy duffel bags slung over his shoulders. A worn baseball cap pulled low. And that old half-smile, the one that used to charm her when he was a boy, now looked like a faded version of someone she barely recognized. He stood there thinner than she remembered. Patchy beard, eyes bloodshot but alert. Hey, Mom, he said, voice low and hesitant. Didn't think I'd be back here again. But life's been kicking a little harder lately. He glanced up at the gray sky like it owed him something. Then stepped forward as if he didn't need permission. Evelyn didn't say a word. She simply moved aside to let him in. She should have asked questions, she knew that. But how could she? No matter how old they get. No matter what they've done. When your child comes back looking broken, you open the door. Ryan settled into the old kitchen chair like he'd never left. Evelyn made tea and set a mug in front of him. He didn't drink it. I'm between jobs, he said, the words light, almost rehearsed. The whole IT department got downsized. Didn't see it coming. I was crashing with Mason for a while. But he's got his kid now. Long story. I just need a few weeks to reset. That word, reset, rolled off his tongue like it was supposed to fix everything. Evelyn nodded slowly, even as something in her chest tightened. Ryan had always known how to smooth things over. How to leave out the details that mattered. But the part of her that was still a mother wanted to believe maybe this time would be different. You can take the guest room, she said, but if you're staying, you help with groceries, and clean up after yourself. I'm not 20 anymore. Of course, he said quickly. I'm not here to mooch. I really want to contribute. I just needed somewhere that didn't feel like failure. That line, didn't feel like failure, stuck with Evelyn longer than she liked. It sounded a little too polished, but she let it sit there between them like an unopened gift. A fragile hope. At first, Ryan really did seem kind. He got up early, brought in firewood before she asked, took out the trash, even fixed the leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom she'd been ignoring for months. One evening, he made a joke about how her stew still tasted like it did when he was 10, and Evelyn laughed. For the first time in what felt like years. In the mornings, he brewed coffee for both of them. Over breakfast, he asked about her old garden in the backyard, the one she hadn't touched since her knees started aching too much to bend. Evelyn started to believe they were reconnecting. That maybe this was their quiet second chance. She didn't bring up the 2 years of silence. She didn't ask about the divorce she'd only heard about through whispers. Or the drinking. Or the jobs that seemed to vanish every time she tried to call. She didn't even mention the birthday cards that never came. Sometimes, companionship, even imperfect, feels worth the risk. Ryan cooked dinner twice a week. He played soft jazz while he cleaned the kitchen. He told stories about fixing printers and clueless customers at his old tech job. Evelyn listened, smiling, letting herself settle into the idea that he was truly trying. "I'll get back on my feet soon," he said once, as they watched the evening news together. "You won't be stuck with me for long." "You're not stuck," she smiled. "You're my son. I'm just glad you're here." And she meant it. She let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, he had changed. But what Evelyn didn't know, what she hadn't yet seen, was that the shift had already begun. The little things. Her pills were suddenly stored in a plastic tray she didn't remember buying. The electric bill she'd left by the door quietly disappeared. Her phone, the old flip one she kept by the window for better reception, was suddenly broken and taken to be repaired. He said it was easier this way. "You've got enough to think about," he told her. "Let me take care of this stuff." She still had her landline, but it rarely rang. Then he started locking the front door from the inside. Said it was for safety. Porch pirates, break-ins, the usual excuses. One day, when she reached for her coat to walk to the mailbox, the door wouldn't open. Ryan, still on the couch, asked, "Where you headed?" "Just to mail a letter," she said. "I'll take it later. Sit down." "Mom, you shouldn't be walking on icy sidewalks." The next day, her boots and winter coat were gone. Moved to the attic. She didn't ask why. She just stood there, staring at the empty hook, wondering when her own house stopped feeling like hers. The kindness had cracks, subtle at first, almost invisible, but the mask had started to slip. And Evelyn, though she didn't know it yet, was no longer just hosting her son. She was slowly being erased by him. Her blood pressure pills weren't where she'd left them. The labels on the bottles didn't quite match the pharmacy's usual ones. But she dismissed it. Maybe the pharmacist used different packaging this time. Maybe she'd made a mistake. When she asked Ryan about it, he smiled, calm and patient. "That's what I'm here for, Mom," he said, patting her hand like a child comforting a confused elder. "You don't need to worry about any of that anymore." She wanted to believe him. For years, Evelyn had done everything herself. Paid the bills, cooked, maintained the house. So letting someone else take on a little responsibility, especially her own son, didn't seem so bad at first. But then it wasn't just the pills. She started waking up to find a plastic pill organizer on her bedside table. Monday through Sunday slots filled with tiny capsules. Already sorted. "I figured this would be easier," Ryan said cheerfully one morning, clearing her breakfast plate before she'd even finished. "You've got enough on your plate without counting pills every day." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Evelyn nodded, though uneasily. Something about this new helpfulness made her feel small. A few days later, the electric bill she'd left on the counter vanished. She assumed she'd mailed it and forgotten. But when she brought up the water bill, Ryan waved her off. "Handled it," he said. "You don't need to stress over this stuff anymore. I've got it covered." Then came her phone. It was an old flip model, nothing fancy, but reliable. She kept it on the windowsill where the signal was best. One day, it was gone. When she asked, Ryan said it had a glitch, and he'd taken it to get repaired. "Just a couple days," he said. "Holiday season, so they're backed up." Without it, the house grew silent. No pharmacy check-ins, no calls from her neighbor Rita, no spam even, just silence. Evelyn still had the landline, but strangely, it never rang. Then the locks started changing. Ryan began using the chain lock on the front door, the one she couldn't reach without a stool. "Just being safe," he explained. "Lots of porch pirates these days. Break-ins, you never know." She laughed weakly, trying not to show how much it unsettled her. But soon after, she noticed something else. Whenever Ryan left the house, he took the keys with him. One afternoon, Evelyn tried to step outside to check the mailbox. The knob turned, but the door wouldn't budge. "Where you going?" Ryan asked from the couch. "Just the mailbox," she replied. forcing a smile. I'll take it later. Sit down. Mom, you shouldn't be walking on icy sidewalks. The next day, her boots and winter coat were gone. Moved somewhere she couldn't find. She didn't ask where, she just stared at the empty hook in the hallway, wondering when this had stopped feeling like her home. Small freedoms disappeared, one by one. She couldn't step outside. She couldn't call anyone. Even the temperature inside seemed beyond her control. The thermostat fluctuated wildly, freezing at night, stifling in the morning. It's an old system. Ryan shrugged. I'll look into it. But he never did. Then one afternoon, she woke early from a nap and heard his voice downstairs. Too smooth. Too rehearsed. No, she's compliant. Hasn't missed a dose. He was saying. Symptoms have worsened. More confusion. Some physical decline. Should qualify by next quarter. Easy. Yes, I have everything on paper. She sat still in bed. Heart pounding. Compliant? Symptoms? Qualify for what? Later that day, she opened the kitchen drawer where she used to keep the house keys. Empty. Instead, she found a neatly written schedule in Ryan's handwriting. Dosage times. Meal notes. Behavioral observations. It looked less like a daily planner, and more like a patient file. That night, Ryan brought home soup from a gas station and placed it in front of her without meeting her eyes. She wasn't hungry. She was afraid. The mirror in the bathroom upstairs had fogged from the shower. When she wiped it clean, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Pale skin, gaunt cheeks, thinning hair. Had she been sick all this time? Or had someone needed her to look sick? The answer came a few days later, when she found the mail. While Ryan was out on one of his so-called errands, Evelyn shuffled through the growing stack of envelopes under the hallway table. Half were addressed to her. Most were unopened. Several bore red stamps. Important. Time-sensitive. Action required. One had the Medicare logo in the corner. Evelyn tucked that envelope under her sweater and carried it to her bedroom like stolen treasure. Inside, a claim filed under her name, for treatments she never received. For in-home assessments she'd never agreed to. For medical equipment she'd never seen. Everything pointed to one conclusion. Ryan had been slowly, methodically creating a version of Evelyn that didn't exist, a confused, declining woman incapable of caring for herself. He'd submitted paperwork. He'd tracked her behavior. He'd applied for caregiver stipends and was preparing to file for long-term disability support, on her behalf. He wasn't just helping her. He was erasing her. That night, she confronted him, gently, carefully, like he was a skittish 10-year-old. Ryan, she said, I think there's something wrong with the insurance. I found a letter. He didn't let her finish. Jesus, Mom, I told you not to mess with that. He snapped, slamming the refrigerator so hard the magnets shook. You're confused. That's exactly why I've been handling things. I'm not confused, she whispered, more to herself than him. He stepped closer, not violent, but towering. You don't need to understand. You need to rest. That night, while he slept, she crept into the home office. At the bottom drawer, under faded receipts, she found it. A notarized form naming Ryan as her medical proxy, dated just 2 weeks ago. Her signature was slanted, shaky. She had no memory of signing it. Beside it, a binder labeled, Continuing Care Plan. Inside, pages of notes, appetite changes, signs of disorientation, sleep patterns, mood, every page written in Ryan's hand. He wasn't documenting her for her. He was documenting her against her. And Evelyn, finally, saw the truth for what it was. Her son wasn't just trying to take care of her. He was trying to claim her, one form, one locked door, one missing pill at a time. Evelyn couldn't remember exactly when the doubt started. Maybe it was the day her phone vanished. Or maybe it was when she found herself knocking on the bathroom door to ask for toilet paper. And Ryan responded after a long pause. I'm busy. Mom, hold on. It wasn't that she didn't want to trust him. It's that, little by little, the house stopped feeling like hers. And then she found it, the folder. That night, while Ryan snored softly on the couch, a magazine slipping from his lap, Evelyn crept toward the office. The hallway light glowed just enough to guide her but not cast shadows. Her fingers trembled, cold, tired, and scared, But her mind was sharp. She had to know. In the bottom drawer of the desk, there was a small rusted lock. Evelyn bent a bobby pin, slipped it into the latch, and after a few tense attempts, it clicked open. Inside, a thick binder in a plastic sleeve, labeled in neat block letters. Continuing Care Plan, Evelyn Carter. As soon as she picked it up, a page slipped out. Medical Proxy Authorization. Ryan listed as her legal medical decision-maker. Date signed, 2 weeks ago. Her signature, shaky, tilted. She had no memory of signing anything. Her heart quickened as she opened the binder. Inside were handwritten logs, organized by date, with eerie precision. Appetite, minimal. Skip lunch again. Speech, slurred, incoherent around 3 p.m. Mood, irritable. Failed to recognize me. Mobility, declined. Using wall for balance. It read like a patient chart. But not just any chart. One documenting cognitive decline. Confusion, dependency, incapacity. Only, that wasn't her. She still remembered birthdays. Still made tea without a timer. Still read the newspaper and underlined the editorials she disagreed with. Maybe she forgot a doctor's appointment now and then. But who didn't? Evelyn clenched the folder like it might vanish. She turned the next few pages. Scanned insurance forms, Medicare filings, reimbursement requests for in-home care, itemized lists of medical needs. Every page bore her name. Every request bore Ryan's signature. Payments were already being sent to him. Filed under primary caregiver to elderly, cognitively impaired parent. Her breath caught. She sat down on the carpet. The binder open in her lap like a wound. The air in the room was cold, but her skin burned. Ryan had crafted a full-blown story, and made her the main character in a tragedy she wasn't living. Every kind gesture had been part of it. The meds, the locked doors, the missed phone calls. He hadn't been caring for her. He'd been documenting her decline. Or, more accurately, creating one. To them, insurance companies, government aid programs, she looked like a vulnerable old woman. To him, she was a paycheck. When Ryan walked in the next morning, Evelyn was standing in the kitchen with a mug of tea. The binder was back in its place. "Did you sleep all right?" he asked. Casual as ever. She nodded. "Have you been talking to insurance lately?" she asked, feigning innocence. He hesitated a beat, then smiled. "Just updating a few things. Nothing for you to worry about." For the first time in weeks, Evelyn didn't look away. She met his eyes, steady, and in that moment, she made up her mind. That night, Ryan handed her the old flip phone. "Pick a place," he said. "Something quick. Don't go fancy." She smiled weakly. "Okay," she said. "I think I still remember the number." She did. But it wasn't to a pizza place. It was 911. Christmas Eve had never felt so cold. The windows fogged with frost. The air inside the house thick with silence and something else. Something unspoken. Evelyn sat motionless at the kitchen table. Her hands curled around a cup of soup that had gone cold long ago. In front of her sat a brown paper bag Ryan had just dropped on the table. No holiday cheer, no lights, just the dim yellow glow of the oven cracked open for warmth. "If you want something else," Ryan said, casually, like he was doing her a favor. "Make a call, but pick somewhere cheap and quick." And then he handed her something she hadn't seen in over a month. Her old flip phone. The screen was cracked, the plastic chipped, but when she opened it, it lit up. Ryan stood behind her, arms crossed, watching. She nodded, keeping her voice calm. "Okay, I think I still remember the number." And she did. But it wasn't for pizza. 911. "What's your emergency?" Evelyn spoke as if placing a food order. "Hi, I'd like to order a large pizza. Extra pepperoni." There was a pause, a shift in the operator's voice. "Ma'am, you've reached emergency services." "Yes," Evelyn replied softly, "and I'd like it delivered quickly. I'm at 2449 Echo Ridge Lane. Use the side door, it's unlocked. Please don't knock." Silence again. Then the woman's voice came back, cautious and lower. "Is someone threatening you?" Evelyn's eyes flicked toward the kitchen. Ryan was still running water at the sink. "No," she whispered. "I just don't want anyone else to know. He doesn't like visitors." "Are you in danger right now?" Evelyn glanced at the clock. 6:43 p.m. The oven hummed. Her toes were numb. "I'm fine," she said with a steadiness she barely felt. "Just very, very hungry. And alone." The operator's voice changed again, sharper, more alert. "Okay, Evelyn, help is on the way. Please stay on the line." She hadn't said her name. But maybe they had it already. Maybe it was in the system. It didn't matter. Footsteps echoed from the kitchen. Evelyn slipped the phone beneath the table, cradling it in her lap under the edge of her sweater. "Just the pizza," she murmured. "Don't forget the pepperoni." Ryan walked back into the room, holding a dish towel and a can of soda. He studied her. "You said no sausage, right? Just pepperoni?" She smiled. "Right, just pepperoni." He seemed satisfied and returned to the kitchen. The call was still active. The operator was still there, listening, waiting. 15 minutes later, Evelyn was still in her chair, hands wrapped around the now warm soda can Ryan had given her. She watched the blinking light on the phone beside her, steady, pulsing, alive. Then came the sound. Not a knock, not a doorbell, a thud, a shoulder breaking the door open. Boots on hardwood, firm voices calling out, clear, clipped commands. Ryan shouted from somewhere in the back. No one answered him. Evelyn didn't move. She just sat, wrapped in a blanket near the laundry room. Small and still. A flashlight swept the floor, landing on her. A woman's voice, low, calm, gentle. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Evelyn blinked. A hand settled on her shoulder. Warm, human, not clinical, not controlling. She nodded slowly. Another officer called from the kitchen. Ovens cracked for heat. Empty fridge. Soup cans in the sink. Bruising on her arms. A third officer said, "Thin, down at least 15, 20 pounds." He was holding something. A folder. Daily symptom logs. Medical notes. Scheduled medications. He was documenting her decline. Evelyn didn't speak. Couldn't. But she didn't need to. She was no longer alone. They helped her to her feet. Her knees buckled slightly, but strong hands steadied her. As she stepped out into the snow, the house faded behind her. The sky was still and quiet, flakes falling gently over everything, as if trying to erase what had happened. Inside the cruiser, Evelyn stared at her reflection in the glass. Sunken cheeks, dull eyes, hollow expression. But for the first time in weeks, her hands didn't shake. She was safe, and someone had listened. The courtroom was colder than Evelyn had imagined. Not just in temperature, but in feeling, dense and still, as though every breath weighed twice as much. The wooden bench pressed against her spine. But she sat upright, hands folded in her lap, no longer curling in on herself like she used to. Ryan sat across the aisle, dressed in a sharp suit, beard freshly trimmed, face unreadable. He didn't look at her. And when he finally did, it was with something that looked disturbingly like pity. As if she were the one who had lost everything. His attorney stood first. "Your Honor," the man began smoothly, "this is a case of misunderstanding. My client cared for his elderly mother out of love and responsibility. Her fear was the result of isolation, aging, and cognitive decline. All documents were signed willingly. There was consent, not coercion." He paused, then continued. "She even wrote him a thank you note at one point. Her memory is unreliable. She's admitted as much. We're not here to punish compassion." Evelyn didn't blink, didn't shed a single tear. She only gripped the folded paper in her hands tighter. A note she had opened and refolded so many times that the edges had worn soft and thin. Then it was her turn. She didn't take the witness stand. Instead, she stood behind the podium, voice low but unwavering, hands resting on the paper like an anchor. "I raised a son who grew into a man that learned to fake care, but never learned how to feel it," she began. "And for too long, I mistook silence for survival." A pause. One heartbeat. "I'm not confused. I'm not paranoid. I was hungry. And I was locked in my own house by the person who used to call me Mom." The room didn't move. No one stirred. Her voice had none of the trembling it once did. Only clarity. Only truth. "I was managed, medicated, monitored, written up in logbooks like a patient, tracked like a paycheck. But today, I stand here not as a victim of memory loss, but as a woman who remembers everything. The judge didn't take long to decide. A full protective order was granted. Ryan was charged with elder abuse, insurance fraud, and unlawful imprisonment. He was prohibited from coming near Evelyn or contacting her again, in any form. As the courtroom emptied, Ryan turned to look at her once more. But Evelyn had already looked away. She didn't need to see his eyes anymore. That night, Evelyn returned to the house that had once felt like a cage. Now, it was just a house. The kitchen light felt warmer. Though nothing had changed, the walls were quiet, but peacefully so. No more hidden notes. No more missing shoes. No more second-guessing her own mind. She opened the drawer and pulled out the old pizza flyer, the one Ryan had hidden months ago. She pinned it to the fridge with the same heart-shaped magnet as before. Not to order food, but to remind herself, one call can change everything. She opened a brand new notebook. On the first page, she wrote with firm, steady strokes, "One call away." She underlined it twice. 3 days later, a letter arrived. The envelope was from Michigan. Inside was a handwritten note, neat cursive, just slightly shaky. "I heard your story. My son did something similar to me. No one believed me. I'm glad someone finally got out." Evelyn stared at the words for a long time. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from recognition. She was not alone. She had never been the only one. And now, her quiet voice from that fake pizza order had become a beacon for someone else. Some relationships wear the mask of love but are built on control, manipulation, and the quiet stripping of freedom. This story isn't just about a mother escaping her own son. It's about reclaiming her voice, her dignity, and her right to be seen as more than just old or confused. In a world still burdened with prejudice around age, mental health, and gender roles, speaking up, even through a disguised pizza order, can become a powerful act of courage. As the old saying goes, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. The real lesson here isn't just for victims, but for all of us. Listen closer, look deeper, and never assume silence means weakness. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below, or tell us if you've ever witnessed a plot twist hidden behind quiet strength. Tap like if you found this story meaningful, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, real-life dramas and reflections. Wishing you peace today, and may you always hold on to the light within, no matter how loud the world gets.